So hello, everybody. A big welcome. I'd like to start, if I may, by acknowledging the traditional landowners of the land that I'm convening this meeting on today, which are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I would like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. And obviously also as well to welcome this magnificent number of people that we have joining us today. It feels like a very special day for us, the official launch of our new showcase program called RegTech Edge No Borders. In this COVID world that we are living in, we really want to make the most of the focused time that I really feel that we have access to now, and to leverage the truly authentic conversation, a bit like what we've just been having, that's taking place in our homes, which are traditionally the private place that we have, that's now actually become this public place. And I'm finding that over the last couple of weeks, we've been having much more casual conversations rather than those that we might traditionally have in boardrooms or at conferences and the like. And along with this more authentic conversation, we're also seeing this dissolving of international boundaries and borders and allowing a truly global conversation. So we're enjoying that, and I'd urge everybody to make the best of that today. So the RTA has 150 organisational members, and they're committed to accelerating adoption of RegTech and creating this global centre of RegTech excellence. And today we're bringing all parts of the globe together as a connected community to see the potential of RegTech. So we actually developed RegTech Edge last year as our flagship showcase program, really. And it was a way that we could show the opportunities that RegTech held for organisations. And traditionally, we had been doing those in individual places, such as Singapore. We had planned to do one in London and one in Auckland, and we had run one in Sydney. But 8 weeks ago, with COVID-19 upon us, we not only had to postpone our annual conference, but we had to also postpone indefinitely our events in Auckland and London. So rather than have COVID be a problem for us, we decided to just completely pivot online. And today we are truly bringing the world to us rather than us going to the world. So over the coming weeks and in the next fortnight or so, we will bring you some more programs just like this that will be focused around specific solutions for specific problem statements. So as you see those events come out, please share them with your networks. So today we have an amazing array of people online. We have people from the government, export agencies, regulators, banks and financial services, universities, research houses, super funds, insurers, investors, payment platform providers. We've got our cousins from the Nordic RegTech Association and from the Canadian RegTech Association. We've got fintechs, we've got a central bank, and actually we've even got a water supply company. 14 countries, Europe, UK, Asia, US, Middle East, and Pacific. This is proof that RegTech really is a universal powerhouse for productivity and efficiency that we are about to see here. So this is fascinating to me, and this session will be testament to that. If you think about it, and if you're a regulated entity on the line today, where is your information? How do you find it? Can you find it? And is it secure? Can you translate it? And is it accessible, especially in this remote working environment? And how do you then apply the discovery of all of this information into a compliance or a regulatory framework? These are some of the questions that we're going to have answered today. Please do reach out to me or directly to those presenting today, because they are waiting to hear from you and to help you to solve some of your greatest challenges. We're really lucky. Today I have an MC and his name is Liang from KPMG. I could think of no better person than to help guide our RegTechs through the next part of the program. Will is a very experienced technologist. He's led technology and advisory and digital transformation programs in highly regulated environments, and he is the national lead for RegTech at KPMG. Prior to being at KPMG, Will served as head of technology for Macquarie Capital, Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. And his experiences cross technology, data, digital transformation, and enterprise architecture in multiple sectors. He applies a client-centric approach to innovation and delivery supported by high-performance technology products and services, ensuring best results. Will is going to do a short address for us, and then he's going to guide us through the 6 presentations that we have, and then he will moderate the Q&A for us throughout and afterwards. Big shout out and welcome to you, Will. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. That's a very nice nice welcome. Firstly, I really want to thank you, Deborah and Alison and RegTech Association for organizing this event, but also many other events in very recent weeks. I'm very glad to be part of this a very active RegTech community here in Australia. So a few months ago, we published an article on RegTech, and around the same time, we submitted papers to the RegTech Senate Committee in Australia. One of our view was that because of Royal Commission in Financial Services, many regulated entities were so busy with customer remediation effort, right? Of course, for the right reason, but it somewhat slowed down the pace of the digital transformation journey. Now that view has completely changed, right, since COVID-19. I think a tsunami of large digital transformation activities across industry will happen and will happen simultaneously. So I see there are 5 different triggers to that, right? The first one around business continuity and resilience, right? So all the business continuity plans have been out of date, right? So they need to be redone. We see business leaders really struggling, right, in terms of embracing that level of ambiguity to balance what they can control and what they cannot control. In order to continue operating in this environment, many organizations will relentlessly digitizing their operation. Some of the conversations that I've been having with board members of large and middle-sized organizations are, how can we use RegTech to digitize our risk function, audit function, data function, and what's the impact to our teams? So the second point I want to quickly discuss is around customer behavior change. So many industry has been forever changed, right? For example, the travel industry, right? This morning, the CEO of IATA basically said travel will become normal in 2023, right? And retail has changed. We know that. I don't want to use cash anymore. People don't want to use cash anymore. People want cashless payment. Real estate as well, right? So with so many companies, Twitter yesterday announced that they want to support employees to work from home permanently. We really got to think about whether people still want to live in the city or not, right? If I work from home most of the time, I want to live in the suburban area. So the point I'm trying to make here is the business will struggle in terms of keeping up with new customer demand. There will be a competition and there will be relative winners and losers. I believe the key to success here is, again, digital transformation. Definitely watch this space. I also think what also might be happening is the big tech companies, right? Google, Microsoft, big tech companies will also be distracted by some of these new opportunities created by consumer behavior change, and there might be some pretty significant moves happening in this space. So globalization is the next point I want to mention. Globalization has many different phases, right? But in particular, one point I think is related to digital transformation is around local businesses. So we've seen firsthand local businesses have been closing down, right? I've seen, my favorite brand has been closing down. I think the community will generate a local first mentality. So my son recently wanted a game. All right, and I can easily get that game from Amazon in the United States for $20 cheaper, including delivery. But I prefer to buy local. just purely because I want to support that business. Right? I think that's a great economic wave to ride and also revive a lot of local businesses. However, I think the challenge is to be sustainable, to be long-term. I think the key thing is Australian local business really need to increase the efficiency and drive the cost down, which means more digital transformation effort. I also want to quickly touch on regulation. If you remember during GFC, right, governments around the world bailed out a lot of banks. To ensure that would not happen again, enhanced capital requirements were introduced by BCBS, in particular the Banking Supervisory Committee, in particular Basel III. We think a Basel-like regulation will be introduced for all industries. This is not only Australia, but global, right? The government will look to, again, distance themselves from bailouts, right? From stimulus packages, right? And shift the responsibility onto the business themselves. So this could lead to similar regulatory mechanism applied across the industry, with all companies of certain size needing to hold and retain certain level of regulatory capital, and probably also a proven capability of operating virtually. Undoubtedly, this regulation will drive digital transformation. Now, I've discussed 4 points now, right? So we've discussed business resilience, consumer behavior, we've discussed globalization and regulation. But last point, and I think is the most important point, is the foundation of life, right? So my view is the biggest long-lasting impact of COVID-19 is actually people's experience from isolation for a long period of time. It has to change the foundation of life for many. People will look at work differently. People will look at family differently, friendship differently, community differently. It will change people's value and purpose. People will ask, is getting this deal done really the most important thing? People will ask, is getting promotion this year really the most important thing? New demand will come out of that. New demand, new product, new services, and the digital will certainly be leading the way. Look, I've talked quite a lot. I'm happy to discuss any of this further with anyone. Please feel free to contact me. But now I want to really introduce 6 amazing companies to spend a bit of time to talk about their story of digital transformation. The format we're going to go through is we're going to do 5 minutes for each of the company, and also 2 minutes Q&A session at the end of the 5 minutes. So firstly, it's my pleasure to introduce Bruce, who is the co-founder and CEO of One Word Flow. Bruce, over to you.
Thank you very much, and that was a very, very good introduction, by the way. Hi, everybody. I'm Bruce Wren, CEO of One Word Flow. We're going to talk to you today about the seismic change that is going on in documents and how we're at the cutting edge of this. This has, for RegTech purposes, it has an op risk focus as well. But let me kick on, because what I want to do is, next slide, please. We're the first company to be able to move large volumes of documentation at massive scale from analog to digital. And the focus at the moment, so we're redefining what a document actually means, because at the moment a document is a long linear document, a long linear thing of many dozens or hundreds of pages. We're working at the page level, so we can actually access this on any document, any device, in any language, anywhere on the planet. Next slide. I wanted to actually take you back a few years and think about what you were doing when you wanted a family movie for the night. You go down to Blockbuster, get a movie out, but the movie on the shelf there was one of many. There'd be a lot of different copies of this. It would be in a plastic box. It would be on a DVD. And down the street, there'd be dozens of other copies of the same movie. And around the world, there'd be maybe 1 million copies of that same movie. the packaging and the movie were all, and the content and the format were all tied up together. Today, there's one version of it. It's on Netflix, it's digital, it's on demand. We do the same thing with music, with Spotify, build your own playlist. Next slide, please. But we don't do it with documents. The world's knowledge base is codified in documents, and there's 15 trillion on the planet now, growing at 3 trillion a year. And everything is around the format. It's all around the Word or the PDF document. And you can't actually have just part of a document. You have to have the whole thing when you download it. So we're actually taking it into the web, where you can actually have any page on demand instantly. Next slide, please. At the moment, when you get a document, it's all or nothing. You've got to go hunt through a SharePoint drive. You've got to then download a document or a policy or a procedure or a guide or a handbook. And then if you're trying to compare the two, it's awful. Go to the next slide, please. So you have to download it. You have to scroll through it. You've got version control problems, duplicates, different formats. We're fighting the technology all the time. Next slide. So and of course, this has a massive cost of business. We all look at 7 documents a year, 7 documents a day, 7 different document repositories a day. McKinsey reckon we lose 16% of every day just searching for information. It's out of control in terms of volume. The cost of business is massive. And if it's bad enough at the office, it's even worse with COVID-19, because you don't even have access to the local system. You've got to go in remotely. Next slide, please. So what we're doing is we're taking these analog documents, policies, procedures, etc., and we're aggregating them and taking them through our cloud-based service, where we ingest them and totally digitize them. So we're calling digitization of documents the last frontier. We've done it with music, we've done it with banking, we've done it with music, but we've never done it with documents. So that now you can go to a digital website, one place to go for all your documents. It's secure, no downloads, one version of the truth, filtered the search, instantly available on any document in your repository. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. So in the cloud, there's one version of your documents, just like on Netflix, there's one copy of the music. Next slide. So they won't look like this. Here's a typical Word or PDF document times 30, 50, 100, 200 pages. Next slide. And they won't look like this. These are all the related documents. Go and download another document and another one and another one. They don't look like this with us. Next slide. What they do is you start in a console like this, where everything is in one place, all your policies, procedures, guides, etc., and they're all digital. Next slide. This is what your same procedure document looks like. It's a website, and you can go instantly to any page without a download. One click, and you're there. Click the twister, you can go straight to the next section. Next slide, please. Do the same thing with the regulation. We'll digitize the regulation, so that now you've got the policies, procedures, the guides, all in the same website at your convenience. Click again. And perhaps you want to compare them. So we put the policies and procedures together on the same screen at the same time. What we've done along the way is we haven't just digitized it. We've actually added all sorts of value, such as building a classification of every document, a tag cloud down the middle of every document. This particular one looks at the common formats, the common tags between both sets of documents, and it filters the search. So it means also at the same time, we'll tell you what an acronym means. And so in the search, you've got the two simultaneously. So now we have policies, procedures, guides, all in the same place. Just like on Netflix, all your libraries in one place and all your information is together. Next slide, please. Digital puts the customer in charge, because the customer doesn't want, what was that, 1 minute? I couldn't hear that. Okay. I've got some feedback on the line there. Someone needs to turn their microphone off. I think it's Gabriel.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. So what the customer does is the customer now can have access to any document, any page, on any device, because it's optimized for every device, and it is on demand at any time of the day or night and anywhere on the planet. Now, the great thing too is the speed of being able to do this is massive. We all take a 100-page document and take it to a 100-page website in about 3 minutes. So it means that we can actually go into an organization and take, say, their top 1,000 documents and move them into the cloud so they're available to all their staff instantly. Now, remember, when you're working from home, people are downloading stuff from the intranet. They're putting it on their C drive. It's not secure. Which version have they got? A lot of the mistakes in operational risk are happening because people are making decisions on the wrong information, the wrong version. Often when we do an audit, we'll often find the same document 20 times across 5 or 6 different repositories. It's in Dropbox, or it's in the C drive, or it's in SharePoint, in a different file or a different folder. So these are the problems that we've really got right now. So that's kind of the view from 40,000 feet. We're moving information at massive scale from analog to digital. It's the last frontier. We're doing to documents what Netflix did to video.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bruce. Just to remind everyone that if you have any questions, as Deborah mentioned, please type in the chat in Microsoft Teams. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. So yeah, if any questions for Bruce, please type in. Bruce, I do have one question for you.
Yeah.
So with current environment, many people working remotely, right? And
yeah.
There must be many people who are downloading critical documents to a home network that are not very secure, right?
That's right.
So how long would it actually take for you to put, let's say, 100 policy procedures online?
Oh, look, it's very fast. Once we've got a few of the rules written and a few templates in place, we're doing one POC for one customer at the moment, and we'll do 200. We'll get 200 documents up in about 2 weeks. So in fact, COVID will be their actual opportunity to go digital. They've been resisting it in the past because there's never been the time or the budget or whatever. Now they realize that actually they should be digital now, and this is actually a really good catalyst for them to move. So the answer to your question is, just a couple of weeks.
Cool. So we got a question from Lawrence from Applied. He's asking, what is the percentage of accuracy on the conversion from analog to digital?
Look, first of all, there's 2 parts to answer the question. The first is it's over 100%. What we're doing is a lot of people forget that a Word document, a Microsoft Word document, is already an XML document. So when we're digitizing it there, we in fact are actually giving a very faithful view. But we're also not changing the underpinning document. The underpinning document still sits in your SharePoint folder or whatever your point of truth is, and we're giving you a web-based view on it. But what we're enabling you to do is you don't actually have to go through the whole document to get the bit you want. If you want to get to page 75, it's 1 click, and you don't have to download anything. So the accuracy is very high, and the security, of course, is very high as well, because there's one version of the truth, and we're giving you the latest version in the web view.
Great, thank you. So if you do have more questions for Bruce, please still type in. We'll try to get to that later. So now, can I please introduce Guy from ProvenDB, who is the co-founder and CTO.
Thanks, Will. Hi, everyone. Guy Harrison, yes, CTO and founder of ProvenDB. Great to be here. Thanks, Alison. So I wanted to start by introducing the company and give you some context before we talk about sort of like the implications in the current situation. The way I see it, we've been storing information in various media for about 5,000 years now. And the earliest documents that we know of, the 3000 BC clay tablet that you see in the upper left, was in fact a financial document, and similar things were inscribed on stone. But for most of the past millennia, we've been using paper, which was a great medium, cheap, economical. But as we all understand, over our lifetimes, we've seen pretty much everything go to digital format into magnetic disk and solid state disk. You can see there the first 5 megabyte solid hard disk drive, and 5 megabytes used to weigh a ton. If you look at them there, loading it onto a truck, but it got smaller, faster, denser, and now, next slide please, we have pretty much all of our significant information held in this digital format, which has given us fantastic advantages. But at the same time, it's created a problem in that all of this information can be overwritten very easily without leaving any trace. Next slide. And this has led to some extent, or this is one of the reasons why we've got an erosion of trust, an increase in fake news, and widespread reporting of problems of document fabrication and tampering. Next slide. The technological solution to this sort of problem is generally regarded to be the blockchain, because on a blockchain, the data is immutable. Once you place it there, it can't be overwritten. But unfortunately, next slide, blockchains are just too expensive and too unwieldy to be used as a replacement for the sort of databases that we use as the underpinning of all of our compliance and financial systems. So next slide, this is where ProvenDB comes in. We're a sort of a hybrid best of both worlds solution that uses database for mass storage of information, but we create digital signatures and post them onto a public blockchain, and those signatures prove the origin date, the integrity of the data, and this prevents any unauthorized tampering and always gives you a complete view into the history of all the documents. Next slide. We use this technology to provide three solution sets. One is a platform for people to develop their own applications. Second, we have a product called ProvenDB Compliance Vault, which is a turnkey solution for storing compliance information, which is most relevant to RegTech. And then we also market a secure database in conjunction with MongoDB, which is more of a cybersecurity type solution. Next slide. So Compliance Vault is, as I said, a RegTech solution. It's designed to store all of your important compliance information so that you can survive audits and prove that there's been no tampering or fabrication of information. Next slide. It's a user-friendly web system. It includes integration with email and with other applications. Next slide. And anything in there can be proven to be of correct integrity. And you can see a complete history of it. Next slide. And so we feel this fully meets the APRA data risk guidelines. Next slide. So in terms of how we think we play a role in the current pandemic context, I know this is a busy slide, but like everyone, I've been trying to work out what the impact of COVID-19 will be on my industry, on technology, and on society in general. And Will's touched on many of these things, that working from home has created a huge amount of cyber vulnerability. It's created an economic downturn, and those two factors are thought to be leading to an increase in cybercrime. And the vast stimulus programs that have been unveiled are going to eventually create a compliance problem for the government and for companies. Eventually, we'll have to start justifying our compliance for stimulus handouts. The government's not going to keep throwing money away continuously without some sort of justification. And at the same time, given the burden created by testing and tracing and the increasing misinformation, which is, you can see now just in the past weeks, misinformation about COVID-19, there will be an increasing emphasis on trust and being able to prove the veracity of data. And so we're hoping that we can play into those areas. The ones that are sort of shaded there in red are the ones that we're particularly hopeful that we'll be able to do something useful in. By the way, our timing was terrible. We launched our commercial service at the beginning of the year, so we were just onboarding our first customers and getting our pipeline set up, and pretty much, we've launched at the worst possible time probably, but we're still hopeful that we've got something to offer. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Guy. Interesting. You mentioned a lot of different use cases here, but one of them is cybersecurity, right? Can you explain a little bit more about your solution in terms of the use case in cybersecurity space? And also, I'm interested in would the audit trail feature of your solution help identify the origin of an incident?
Yeah, sure. So so there's two aspects to that. What's our sort of like cybersecurity offering? What we offer particularly is a tamper-proof database. So there's a lot of cybersecurity layers of protection to try and deal with intrusion, but we don't have much in the industry. We don't have many ways of combating unauthorized changes of data. And in some famous hacks, that's exactly what happened. People went into Oracle databases, inflated the bank balances directly, and then ran off with the money. And that's the sort of thing that in our system couldn't happen. And the other thing that happens in cybersecurity context is that typically people try and cover their tracks, and they do that by trying to manipulate logs and access records. And again, because we're tamper-proof, we can write an audit log that can't be tampered with. And so we sort of like, you know, have those two things to offer in a cybersecurity context.
Great. Thank you so much, Guy. Next, may I introduce Rachel, who is the founder and CEO of CastlePoint Systems. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you. Hey guys, so I'm Rachel Greaves, that's me there. I'm the CEO of CastlePoint, and that is Gavin McKay, our CTO. So I'm a certified record security and project manager and systems auditor, and I've been working with government on compliance for about 13 years, and Gav has about 25 years experience in the same area, and we're the co-founders and architects of the system. So talking about the problem, there's around 1.1 million regulated businesses and organisations in Australia and about 200 million globally. So each one has to comply with dozens of different acts, regulations, and we spend a huge amount on compliance programs every year and even more on penalties for breaches. Compliance as far as information goes means information security, privacy, handling, retention across all evidence of business in all systems and formats. So that's a huge job. And the cost and risk involved in doing that is limiting businesses from growing and from globalising. Next slide, please, Al. Then we had a pandemic, so regulatory requirements haven't gotten less, and there's still strict liability for a lot of obligations, but budgets and workforces have been constrained. And I guess we can think about the three sort of old standards of information control through the lens of those impacts. So confidentiality is compromised by increased use of insecure systems and networks. That can mean security and privacy breaches and also leakage of valuable IP. Integrity is compromised by less oversight as staff work at home and work on ungoverned systems. So the risk of accidental and deliberate damage to data goes up. And availability is affected by the diaspora of workers onto those systems of convenience, which in some cases are their own personal systems. So exile from the network leads to loss of data. Next slide, please. It was already hard to manage information risk. You know, networks now have dozens, sometimes thousands of systems. Data comes in all formats. It's not possible to centralise all of that data into a single compliance system. And it's also infeasible to get users to understand and apply metadata, tags, regulatory rules to the distributed content. So we know we need visibility of all the data across the whole environment. We have to know where the risk and the value is, everything that happens to the data, and when it happens. And we have to know and apply the rules, which come from dozens of instruments in hundreds of contexts over millions of data points. This helps us comply and helps us grow, but people just can't keep up with all of this. So we need AI. Next slide, please. We've recently done several implementations in government focused specifically on digital transformation and automation, and I'll just briefly talk about three. Next slide, please, Al. So in 2018, you'll remember, ANU lost 19 years worth of personal data, but none of those records should have been kept longer than 7 years under their regulations. So failure to regulate that data was failure to manage the risk. We did a large-scale migration of legacy data with CastlePoint for ANU, and we found that over 50% of the data set was actually overdue for disposition under law and had no ongoing value, so could just be disposed of. We also found in that set a lot of sensitive and high-value data, and we were able to map the old content to new owners, even where the organisation structure and the users had completely changed in the interim. Next slide, please, Al. NHMRC spent 2 years actually engaging a consultant to manually sentence 1.2 million documents in a shared drive out of 4 million in that drive. We ran CastlePoint over the same data over a few weeks, and we found that the system was 100% accurate in sentencing versus only 75% for the records manager. And that's because 1.2 million documents in 2 years is 1 every 7 seconds. It's just not enough time to understand the records and the applicable rules without using AI and automation. Next, please, Al. Western Sydney Airport use Castle Point to see what's happening in real time and react to it. Their chosen collaboration system allows deletion because turning it off also affected other functions which reduce their efficiency. So we alert them when a deletion of a high value record occurs, giving them time to recover it. Across all of these clients, we also do discovery, obviously. So NHMRC is a good example where we use Castle Point for their FOI across the shared drive, and we're able to reduce the human effort cost per year from $400,000 in effort to less than $10,000 in effort. Next slide, please. So it's those kinds of efficiencies that organisations need right now to survive the downturn and bounce back better. You know, more efficient and more compliant is a very good proposition for government and industry right now. So how do we do it? The system's up and running in a couple of days, on-prem or in the cloud, with no need for face-to-face contact, which has been good for us in the pandemic. It's invisible to users, so there's no training, comms, business process re-engineering or any other business impact. And there's also no agents or connectors, so there's no impact on source systems at all. The cost is low, therefore, compared to other solutions, and the coverage is better. We can and do manage any kind of system, any kind of data, and any regulation. Next, please, Al. So if you're interested in finding out more, please get in touch with one of us. That's not us, but it could be, or connect online. It's castlepoint.systems.
Thank you, Rachel. So you mentioned in your presentation that it sounds from a regulation perspective, it's pretty generic. Is there any particular kind of regulation requirement that does your software cover?
Yeah, we started the system focusing on records regulation because I'm a records manager, so that made sense. So we coded in records authorities first in a rules as code model, but then we quickly discovered that there's actually a lot of regulation that applies to information beyond just National Archives laws. Western Sydney Airport, for example, they have in the Airports Act, there's a clause that says that if you have incorrect information about a runway on your network, you go to jail for 6 months. So, okay, so we code that regulation as well. So we actually encode any kind of act, regulation, law, policy, standard, and we also code now internal ontologies of value and risk. So really, if it's a rule, we can make it rules as code.
Cool. We also have a question from Peter. Hi, Rachel, do you find that your best target client reps being IT people, business reps, or risk people? Who do you get the most traction with?
Yeah, it's actually, it's different horses for different courses. So the product, again, as I said, started as a records management product. So most of our clientele were records managers. However, once you've read every word in every document and database and email and web page, and you have all of its metadata and all of its audit trail, there's a very strong security story that comes from that. So then we start to deal with the audit and security teams. There's a very strong discovery story. So now we're dealing with FOI and legal and business process improvement. And then for organisations like Treasury, for example, there's a very strong strategy story because now they can see the big picture of everything in the environment, where it is, how aged it is, how much use it's getting, what's important and what's not.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you. Can I please introduce next speaker, Nigel, who is the Principal Director from iCognition. Nigel, are you there?
Hi, everybody. How are you going? Thanks, Will. Appreciate that. Okay, so iCognition, we call ourselves information management and governance specialists. And when we're talking about information, what we're talking about mostly is unstructured information. Things like, documents you create in Word and Excel documents. They could be contracts, they could be trust documents. We're also talking about emails, social media, and other unstructured content. We do talk about database transactions and work with database transactions, but mostly we're focused on all that other information that you capture and manage in your environment. For example, one of our clients is Perpetual Limited, and we're working with them to capture and manage their trust documents and make sure that they can present them back to their clients when they need them. Next slide, please. So here in Australia, we've had two major driving forces that are really affecting the regulated industries. We've been heavily involved in government for over 20 years, and we have strong focus on providing regulated solutions such as document and records management solutions to those organisations, but as well as putting them in the context of information management strategies. Now, in Australia, we've had the Royal Commissions. The Royal Commissions are forcing organisations outside of government, such as financials and other regulated organisations, to push down the path of putting in place good, strong governance and compliance systems. Something that we do very well and something that we have brought to the market, and the market is very interested in taking those things up. Those organisations face reputational risk if they don't address these things. And the economic fallout for some of the financial institutions in Australia has been very high when they don't have good, strong compliance and governance of their information. Now, with COVID-19 coming along, of course, that meant that the pace of digital transformation really massively accelerated. With millions of workers working from home, they suddenly found that they needed access to trusted information. They needed to be ensured that they're securely and managing the information within that they work on day to day from remote sites. And this is the stuff that we focus on. We put in place information discovery tools, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we also put in place the way to protect, manage and govern your vital information in a trusted source, which can be accessed remotely. It doesn't matter where you are, working from home or working off a tablet or a phone, you can access and manage this information and ensure your privacy and governance and control is in place so that evidence of business records can be securely managed. So that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is we can provide tools and utilities that can go into network drives, SharePoint sites, Teams sites, and analyze what information is in there, categorize that information, identify where there's security issues or privacy issues, and then once you've decided what they are, you can either pull them into our corporate store and manage them as vital records, or you can apply in-place policies to manage them into that particular environment where they reside. Also, you can clean up the rot. The rot is the redundant stuff, the old stuff, and the formats that are no longer used in the organisation. So we can clean up a lot of that information and give you certainty over where you may have some risks in your unstructured information. Next slide, please. So at the core of what we offer, we have a solution where we can put your vital information and your records in a cloud-based system to allow you access from anywhere. This solution will enforce legislative and regulatory compliance. It will give you ways to capture and manage and control information from that particular environment. It'll be able to link into, for example, Office 365, Teams, SharePoint, Exchange, OneDrive, and make sure you capture and manage your vital information from those corporate applications. This reduces your service delivery costs and increases your compliance to your governance and regulation requirements. And ultimately, it will also allow you a faster response to client and legal discovery requests. This solution is proven reliable. We've got it in a number of government organisations, universities, and also in financial organisations. So let's have a look at those clients. So just next slide, please. So financial institutions. We've got our big financial client is Perpetual Limited. What we're doing there is they have a whole bunch of hard copy trust documents as well as soft copy documents around trusts and contracts that they manage and control. say, document custody control. It also has related emails associated with it. There's some signed PDF documents, and of course they're moving into more digital capture and management of those things. What we're doing is we're moving those into a cloud-based solution, which is a very secure, strong solution that provides them the capability to access it from anywhere and to ensure they integrate into their other line of business systems that use this information. So it's a very integrated solution, very securely controlled. Morgan's Financial, we use a similar kind of thing for their superannuation documents and their signed contracts. But we come from a large pedigree of government departments. We look after Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, for example, Department of Agriculture and Water Resources here in Australia. Currently we're working with the Tasmanian Department of Primary Industry, where we're moving all of their information, their unstructured information, into a cloud-based solution, which will be able to apply this security control, privacy control, and ultimately records compliance to their information. We have other things like the University of New South Wales has been in that kind of environment for 3 years now. It's been a very successful solution. They've just signed a new 12-month contract to go for another 12 months in that cloud solution. So it's a proven pedigree. Next slide, please. So what is the solution? The solution uses Micro Focus Content Manager. It's a secure content management solution that has been identified by people like Gartner and Forrester as being a very good fit to regulated enterprises, as manages large volume of content and data, and has a very good life cycle management and records management control, and that is the core of our system. But on top of that, we provide other value-added solutions to provide easy connection into Office 365. We provide integration points to line of business systems and other activities like that. We provide automated business processes, publishing information, file analysis capability. So it's a very extensible environment, so allow you to ensure that you're putting your governance in place. In Australia, we are putting it in a very strong, secure environment, which has been accredited with the Australian government. It's secret accredited facilities. In other regions, we're looking at similar kinds of arrangements for UK, for example, and EMEA. So these are geo locations that would meet your particular requirements that we would put that in place. Okay, next slide, please. So thank you for your time. If you'd like to know more about us, please head to icognition.com.au, and we would love to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. I might skip the question time and come back to you.
Okay.
Just conscious about the time.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Great. Can I please introduce Warren from SIFT, who Warren is the CEO of the company.
Thanks, Will. Good evening and good morning to some of you. I'm Warren Billington, the CEO of SIFT. SIFT was launched in 2018 as a venture between the BPay Group, a payments company, and BCG Digital Ventures. And our focus is on unlocking the value of the world's hidden information. SIFT is an AI as a service platform that is designed for rapid automation and insight extraction to support digital transformation efforts where there is a lot of unstructured, manually processed data. So today, I'd like to take you through how SIFT is actually helping organizations manage process and compliance efficiency, but also specifically how our platform can address some of the key priority areas for organizations during COVID-19. Next slide, please. So what's the problem we're solving? Most of the world's valuable information is trapped in unstructured data. It's growing exponentially. So if by you look at by 2025, that's growing at a rate that's equivalent to a new Google every 4 days, which is a scary thought. And a high proportion of that data, around 80% of that data, is unstructured. So that's really difficult for organizations currently to be able to capture, access, feed that data into business systems, and that causes a lot of manual processing and inefficiency. For those businesses that get it right, there's a big value potential in terms of improving process efficiency. But it's clear that there are very few businesses that are doing that well. Less than 10% are scaling their automation efforts successfully. Next slide, please. So how does that relate to COVID-19? Where are organizations right now prioritizing spend? We got access to some really interesting data from a VC partner over in the US. And it's clear that there are 2 key focus areas for organizations right now. One around operational transformation, this business continuity that Will talked about. How do businesses quickly reduce costs, optimize existing infrastructure, drive efficiencies and improvements from very manual heavy processes? Definitely an appetite for next-gen cloud-based solutions, both in terms of lowering costs, but also moving quickly. And in parallel, organizations are very much looking to accelerate digital transformation. They want to look at growth opportunities across digital customer-facing initiatives, redefining customer journeys and processes that can be digitized. And the key thing here is businesses want to move quickly. They want a quick time to ROI and business value versus long-term, high-cost transformational projects. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the SIF platform. We're well suited to aligning to some of the challenges around unstructured, some of the immediate priorities for businesses in COVID-19. We have an AI as a service platform that unlocks the value of unstructured data. It's simple to use. An API can be easily integrated into existing operations. It's smart, using the latest in machine learning technology, as well as human validation capabilities. It's highly scalable. It can integrate easily with your ecosystem of partners such as RPAs and ERPs. And that's borne out in the performance of the platform, 90% plus on field accuracy, close to real-time extraction time, 20 times faster deployment than a lot of the traditional OCR businesses, and a growing level of fields that we support. Next slide, please. So we're really helping clients accelerate their digital transformation efforts with 4 value levers. Intelligent automation of document processing, ensuring compliance, significantly reducing setup and runtime risk and overall costs. Improved accuracy using self-learning algorithms to drive accuracy. And also the intuitive augmentation, which allows organizations to augment their human workforce with machine intelligence, so enabling them to drive transformation with their own pace. And finally, the adaptiveness of the platform. We're able to build models very quickly within 2 to 3 weeks across a whole variety of document types, business against different use cases and business units to drive rapid scale. Next slide, please. So finally, just landing on some of the customers, industries, and use cases that we're working on currently, and they align really well to some of those key priority areas for organizations. With MYOB in the financial services area, where SIFT is supporting the digital transformation journey that MYOB are going on, improving digital processes and delivering fast, accurate entry of invoices and payments, and making compliance easy for thousands of small businesses. And then on the right-hand side, across utilities and government, we're working with BCG across a number of projects and digital transformation efforts, where we're addressing some significant compliance issues that those organizations have, the manual processing of a backlog of documentation that is taking 4 to 6 years to process. We were able, within 4 to 6 weeks, to rapidly deploy and deliver process that information within weeks. So In summary, SIFT is helping businesses unlock the value of unstructured data, meet some of those key priorities that businesses have right now with COVID-19 across cost reduction, supporting digital transformation efforts overall. Next slide, please. And if you have any questions, please get in touch and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Warren, for your presentation. May I introduce our last speaker, who is Gavin? Gavin, please tell us all about Search 365.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I'll just okay, next slide, please. So from our perspective, we've been working with search engine technology for over a decade, and when I first started talking to Deborah, I realized very quickly that everything in compliance is actually all about search. Next slide. Because you're either searching for what you need to do in terms of the processes that you're actually running and the various different compliances that people actually have to comply with. Next slide. So searching for what you did is, what did they say? What did they do? Was it all signed? And then searching, next slide. And searching for bad actors, we do a lot of work in national security, helping them find persons of interest. So this applies in a lot of regulated entities in KYC, AML, and politically exposed people. Next slide. But as soon as you mention the word search, every single one of you thinks about this. You can't help but think about it. And all of us have merrily been using this technology now for the last 20 years in our personal lives. Next slide. And if you use those kind of services today, whoever your favorite search is, you'll notice that search has just got smarter over the years. So now it's actually looking at intent, and rather than just doing character matching and trying to point you at information sources, it's actually trying to answer the question itself. It's also showing you what other people are looking for. So what are other common things that other people look for? It'll do spell checking and correct your mistakes. It'll also do, did you mean, were you actually looking for something else, and give you type ahead suggestions as you're actually keen you're searching. But if you think about all of that kind of capability that all of us have been using, and even to the point now that we'll do Hey Google or Hey Siri or whatever your favorite speech assistant is, when you get to the workplace, for the vast majority of people, the solution that is actually presented to you is very, very different. Next slide. And in fact, this was recently thrown into spotlight in the Royal Commission into Financial Services here in Australia. In his opening announcement, the Commissioner was shocked and horrified by some of these massive organisations' inability, even after extensive periods of time, to be able to answer what appeared to be some very simple questions. And we know from working with a lot of these organisations that not one single one of them attempted to use a search engine to answer these questions. One organisation had over 110 people working full-time for nearly 10 months just to answer questions and collate information. One supplementary question that Commissioner Haynes answered took one organisation a team of 90 people 4 weeks to find the information and answer that. And you've got to ask yourself as well, how complete were those answers? Did they actually find everything? So most organisations have got troubles in this area. Next slide, please. So now let's think about what's going on in the world of COVID. So for a lot of organisations, we are living in a new world, and your face-to-face and your in-person interactions are actually being stalled. Next slide. So for a lot of organisations, this is forcing, a digital approach. So customers not being able to transact face-to-face are actually rushing to the digital offerings of those particular organisations that they still have to deal with. Next slide. And we're actually seeing, you know, massive increases in the use of call centres, and those call centres have been swamped, and a lot of those workers aren't actually in those call centre offices anymore. They're actually working from home too. And in fact, the Optus CEO here in Australia has announced that their call centre is going to be permanently based at home. Even after the crisis is over, they're never going back to the office. And I'm sure there'll be other organisations looking at those kind of similar transformations. So we know of a two-person team in one financial services company who were handling 100 calls a week. That same area is now receiving 10,000 calls a day under COVID. Next slide, please. So what we're seeing is this closure of the face-to-face and the old approaches, forcing people into digital or into call centres. And what we're actually seeing is a lot of the call centre traffic is actually being driven by the fact that there's failure in the digital domain. So what we call failure demand is being driven into those call centres, and a lot of the call centres don't actually monitor or look at that kind of traffic to know whether those questions are, you know, I can't find, how do I, what's happening, where has this got to? And there was a story a while ago where, you know, the banks were congratulating themselves that millennials use branches too. And when I was in an event talking about this, one of the questions I asked the audience is, put your hand up if you have a 100% online mortgage process. And not a single financial services company could actually say, yes, we do. So a lot of people are being forced to use these old world models because there simply is no digital equivalent. Next slide, please. And those call centre people themselves, well, they're actually new to the role. You know, if you think about it, they're putting thousands of new people on the phones. What happens when they can't find the information they need or they can't complete the process? So, you know, there's a lot of stresses and strains being put there. And all of those calls, you know, what's the actual quality that's actually being delivered and the compliance that's actually going on? How do you actually know that those new staff are actually giving the right information to the people who are actually calling in? Next slide, please. So our solutions have actually been put into call centres, and one that we work with, there were 42 different information repositories that staff needed to inquire in order to get information. And we put a solution across there so that they could access that entire knowledge base. But that same solution that we provided for the call centre staff is also available on their website. Next slide, please. And this actually also led to 50% reduction in call handling time, 80% increase in first call resolution. Now, even pre-COVID-19, if you run a call centre, then these are pretty impressive numbers that you want to be looking at. Next slide. But in the digital transformation space, we're finding that search is having a role to play too. Certainly when you couple search with artificial intelligence and a lot of cognitive activities that currently require human type of intervention because they fundamentally have human communications involved. Natural language processing is surpassing what normal search has traditionally done. And it also allows us to process audio, image, video, so we can actually start understanding the content that's actually being presented. Paper-based forms we're finding are still very, very prevalent in lots of organisations, still completed in handwriting. And all of these images and paper bases, whether they're faxes or handwritten documents, are still very, very prevalent across the whole base. Next slide, please. And in the AI space, what we're seeing now is human equivalency being breached on a whole load of processes. So the systems are performing with an error rate that's similar to that of a competent human performing the same role. So for this point, you know, perfection isn't the benchmark here because people currently performing the work and making mistakes too. So we just need the artificial intelligence systems to be as good as the people currently doing the work. Next slide. Next slide. Alison?
It seems like there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, sorry, I think you had a link.
Yeah, don't click on the link. Just
sorry. So that's
space bar.
It's also automatically clicked on that. Sorry.
So we're seeing a big increase now in demand for our cognitive process automation, where a lot of our manual intensive work is being automated. We're freeing people to do more because, well, there's actually more requests coming in, or we're actually getting them to focus on value-added work or true customer service. And the other thing is that all of this can now be monitored. So what if you could monitor 100% of your written and spoken communications for compliance, not just a small sample rate that most organisations actually achieve today? Next slide, please. So one of our financial services customers are actually seeing a 75% reduction in their eligibility assessment time through all of this automation. That's a 4-fold productivity increase for the team. And we also had another organisation phone us who, part of their COVID-19 response, they provide insurance for people when they're out of work. So they have actually been swamped with requests, as you could imagine. At the same time, President Duterte closed all of their call centres in the Philippines, so they had nobody available to do the work. They had actually been putting our system into production cautiously, but they had to release the taps and throw us across their entire organisation. And we're now with accuracies in excess of 90% processing 400,000 events per month for that organisation. And they said to us, quite frankly, we saved them in their COVID situation. Next slide, please. So this is really what I'd like you to think about is, what is search like in your current organisation? You all have databases, you might have a data warehouse, some of you will have record management systems, and you might even have a data lake. However, the vast majority of the data you need in your business processes aren't stored in any of those places. We don't build lakes, but we do catch fish, because we work with information in its original form at its place of creation, and we live in the real world. For the vast majority of organisations we speak to, search is either totally absent or very poorly performing. And for the vast majority of enterprises I engage with and talk to their enterprise architects, nobody can actually point to a search engine anywhere on their design or systems deployment models. Next slide, please. So we've been delivering mission critical search and AI for regulatory and digital transformation needs for some time now, in some very, very sensitive areas. And if you'd like to find out more, then please get in touch.
Thank you so much, Gavin, for the presentation. And I want to thank all 6 speakers for your time and presentation today. And apologies for running a bit late. And thanks for everyone staying and thanks for your patience. Deborah, I might hand over to you to the closing.
Yeah, thanks very much, Will. And thank you to everybody, and especially for those who stayed on the line. We apologise for going over a little bit. But in particular, I wanted to acknowledge our members, One Wordflow, SIFT, Castle Point Systems, Search 365, iCognition, Proven DB, and of course, last but not least, KPMG for supporting us today, and to all of you who've beamed in from all around the world to join us. This was our first one. So if you like today, please share your experiences with us by filling in the survey. And if you didn't like today, please fill in the survey as well and give us your feedback, because this is invaluable for us improving these sessions over time. On this slide here, you'll see some of our events coming up that have either been marketed or will be marketed soon. And if you'd like to explore what it means to be part of our RegTech community, here's the link on the page where you can get in touch with us directly about becoming a member. And finally, we'll finish on our famous member map. This is the members of our ecosystem, the very proud members of our ecosystem. Thank you, everyone, for your support. So without further ado, thanks once again. Please stay safe, everyone. And we are going to look forward, hopefully, to seeing you in person very soon, but if not, at the next one of our virtual sessions. Thank you so very much. Thanks.